Making a paring knife from a rusted tiller point. Part 1, Blade Grinding. William Hovey Smith, 2016. I'm the author of Backyard Deer Hunting and also the owner of a new company, Hovey's Knives of China. In this case, we're making one of our Billy Joe Rubidoux knives starting from a very much rusted lawn tiller blade, and we've already done the forging. Here we pick up the shaping starting with an angle grinder. We're doing good with our blade. It's starting even to take on a little bit of a profile, but you can see what we're doing with the grinder. We're making cuts of about an inch or so, and then coming down and cutting these off, and going another inch and cutting off, and going another inch and cutting off. And the reason we're doing this is if you put too much pressure this way on that grinding blade, you can snap it. So you don't want to try to go too deep with these horizontal cuts. Off. I'm using the grinder to grind down until I get all these deep rust pits out of the top of the blade. There's one here remaining and a couple here, there, and a little dish here. And so I want to work all these out with the grinder right quick. And that'll still give me sufficient width here to do whatever I want to do with the blade and the tine. Now that I have this back dressed, I can see that the blade has a slight bow in it, and so I'm putting it in these straightening blocks. Okay. Yeah, that is much more nearly straight now. We have the blade shaped about to total length, although the width of the blade in this direction is still too thick. But you can see what we started with. And this tang section is unusually thick right now. And the blade has many irregularities and dips in this direction. Once we get these two surfaces somewhat more nearly flattened. Thus far, the steel seems to be in good shape. I don't see any cracks running through it on dressing either the bottom or the top here. So the steel seems to have come through fine. So now it's just getting these irregularities dealt with and these, and that's going to reduce the width of this blade section by nearly half. Then we'll shape the point and start worrying about the exact profile here. This piece of steel, direct from the angle grinder, has a lot of very sharp edges here, which is almost guaranteed to cut the fabric belts of the belt sander. So I'm going to go ahead and do some more grinding inside this cabinet. And that way I'll be able to dress up a lot of these issues, I think, much more rapidly than I can do it anywhere else. We're now starting to produce something that looks a little more like a knife. And it still has some significant problems in it. I have a little swell right here on this side, and so I'm going to have to grind that down flush. Had I noticed it, that would have been good to have taken out during the forge welding process, but I did not see it at the time. Now the steel itself has been carefully inspected, and thus far there are no cracks and there are no fatal flaws in it. So this is a stage where you can get a good look at your steel and see if there are any problems. Of course they may be that you would only see at this stage, but you don't want to put any more work in a piece of steel that's fatally flawed, like having a crack that runs through here or anything of that sort. But so far everything is looking good, and there was a surprising amount of sound metal in that blade. With this belt sander, I'm able to move material much faster. And actually, since it has a flat platen on it, take some of the irregularities and waviness out of the blade in this direction. So we're going to be able to do a lot of good here in a hurry. The trick is to pay attention to what you're doing. Just a few seconds on this belt in the wrong way can make you have an error that you just cannot correct. So beware, and don't go super high speed. This has a variable speed on it, and so I'll be grinding at fairly low speed so I can keep track exactly of what's going on. The blade is also going to build up heat in a hurry, so you have a bucket here so you can immerse it. It's okay here, but you don't want to do it when you're using something like the angle grinder, because you'll change the temperature of the steel. Now this could be a perfectly adequate primitive knife for buck skinners, but it's about half the way there from what we want to produce as a paring knife. The blade needs to be thinned both in profile in this direction and also in thickness. So that's what we're going to mainly work on right now. But we're getting there, and so far the steel, the steel is holding up, the steel is looking good, and we've got enough stock there. Just a matter of time now, and we're getting something that, it's going to look pretty good when we're done with it. Well, we've now used our belt sander here to get very close indeed to the profile that we want. So we've used exclusively now the coarse belt, and now we're going to go to a finer grit to get rid of a lot of these coarse polishing marks and do the final shaping and sharpening of the blade. Now that we're going to this finer belt, we can get much closer detail so far as setting the bevel here of the edge, squaring off this area so that we get a good termination with the scales. You can see the profile of the blade and how much it's been thinned in this direction. And the scales are going to fit over this, so this will be a full width tang here, which will sort of help balance the knife. Since the tang is short, we don't have much tang to work with, although we will have wood extending out to here. All right, salient features here. You'll notice right here on the edge,
The steel is almost feathering. It looks almost like it was some sort of plant fibers. This is because this hadn't been hardened yet. It is soft, which is exactly what it should be at this stage. And this is as far as it makes sense to do grinding now. We're going to do a little more polishing with finer grit just to remove some of the excess deep scratches on the blade. Then we'll go ahead and drill these scales. We're transitioning here from a 60 to a 120 grit. And the idea is just to get some of these deep scratches off. That is starting to look much better, much more nearly like a finished blade. Well, some knife makers start actually with a product like this. And what they do basically is put grips on it. Well, this, as you see, has been starting from absolute scratch. And that's how we make our Billy Joe Riveto knives. I have some decorative 1/8 inch pins here. So I'm going to go ahead and sight the holes for those. Get a little lube there. A series of things is going to happen in a hurry here. My heat treatment on my paring knives is completed. So I'm going to take them out of the oven, unwrap it from the foil here, and then temper it by plunging it into this oil. Now I have another piece of steel in that oven that'll go in the oil first to preheat it. So we're going to retrieve that right now. I'm going to open the envelope here. Be an airtight seal, and it is. Like it's much too cool. Let's go back in the oven again. We're ready to harden this knife. It's reheated again to about 1850 for 18 minutes, which is enough for that piece of small steel. So we're going to turn it off, retrieve it, and hook it right here and plunge it down in our oil, which is still plenty hot. This quenching oil, incidentally, only needs to be about 200 degrees, so it is still retaining that much heat and more. And yeah, that's looking good. Quick. Oh. There we go. Let this cool in air. We did pick up some scale we're going to have to polish off. I don't know if that would have happened if we'd been able to do it in the foil. Now that we're through with the heat treatment, we'll put it back on the Scotch-Brite wheel and put some polish on it and remove the vestiges of the oil. So among other things, our glue will take when we install the handles. Yeah, it's coming up right nice.
Handling and grip design will be covered in Part 2.
But now, this is Hovey Smith, reminding you to hunt what you eat and eat what you hunt. Be legal, be ethical, be safe, goodbye, God bless, and see you next time.
I have chapters on knives in all of my outdoor books, including backyard deer hunting, extreme muzzleloading, crossbow hunting, and practical bow fishing. Now, Hovey's Knives of China produces knives based on ancient Chinese designs from 2,000 years ago. And these are now made in modern steels and are equal or better than any kitchen knives in use today. Now, I will continue this series in part 2, where I will attach scales to these knives and talk about grip design. For more information on Hovey's Knives of China, you can go to the website below. For more information on my books, blogs, and nearly 575 videos, you can go to my website, www.hoveysmith.com. Good hunting and good eating from the outdoors. Goodbye, and God bless.